they're not real economists. They don't understand economics, macro, microeconomics, cause and effect, knock-on effect, and it's all headline, vote grab and seats driven. I remember going back, and I think we spoke about it some months ago. I remember when 2008 was the biggest shift out of the stock market into the property market. At the time I was building some pretty large apartment buildings, and I'd never seen so much velocity of capital coming into the property market. I remember one night, and I don't know whether it was good luck or management, but it was timing, that's for sure. We had a very prestigious building in southeast of Melbourne and east of Melbourne, and we sold 60 apartments in one night out of 150, and mainly Chinese money. And what it was, that was a third of that was Chinese money, and a lot of that support first home buyers grant. So you had the environment of the stock market. 2008 was horrific. People in financial markets didn't know who was going to survive. So money was pouring out of the stock market, and where do we put money? Gold wasn't anywhere, gold wasn't doing much. Cash rates were ordinary, let's go and buy real estate. First home buyer grant hits. And what also happened then is the capital guarantee introduced by Kevin Rudd in 2007 didn't help the markets either, because mortgage funds got whacked, and $32 billion was written off in about 11 weeks in mortgage funds. Money pours out and goes to the property market. So what does the government do? First home buyers grant seems like a way to go. And that just what should have been a $500,000, $450,000 apartment, people were lining up to buy that same apartment, were prepared to pay $550 for an apartment. And because there was the first home buyers, but there was also the stamp duty concessions. And the way it was sold is, there's no stamp duty, and we're going to throw in $20,000 of plasma TVs and furniture, develop all these different schemes. Not that we got involved in that, but we didn't have any of those ad backs. We stayed away from that. But what I was seeing is that people were, if they were getting out of stamp duty, a lot of the Chinese money, local money, they're buying them, the family was supporting the kids. And that's how the stamp duty concessions were there. First home buyers grant. This, according to the data, there's been about 240,000 that have gone through this housing scheme that have made application for since 2020, 2024, and 34,000 have come out. So going through the system, this 5% incentive. So 240 have gone and made application, 34 have come out the back end and now have refinanced with another bank. So some of those same people in that 34,000, their parents and those individuals would be hopefully in a better place. But what it does for developers, and not just developers, for any vendor, well, if this is coming on, it fits into the category of the 5%. This will be affordable. We'll just increase it, not by 5, but we'll increase it by 10. And so you're right, you're getting abnormal lifts in property, and the government can't control it. So the government can't control that, and they've made the problem worse. They've made it worse for this young individual female who's struggling, and unbeknown that she's paid 10% more, but she wants to be close to university and school to get into the housing market. So the government, what they're trying to do, they've made it 10, 15, 20% worse. So the next question, I suppose people will say, well, that's okay, Paul, how do we fix it? There are ways to fix it and regulate it and police it, but that costs a lot of money that the government don't have. So bringing in policing controls should be certain levels of property where areas that are tagged, and to qualify, there's certain areas that qualify, and up to a level So you're having caps. But to implement that's quite complicated. But so it doesn't help. These incentives just don't work. Because straight away, any vendor, I mean, I remember when the first home buyers grant came in and when the developers were building that, they jacked the prices up, not 50,000, like 150,000. And people thought they were getting a good deal if you took off 25,000, off another 125,000. Insanity. It doesn't help. That's why they haven't brought back the stamp duty concessions. But stamp duty concessions can be curtailed where you've got limits. And the other thing, what you're using the resources of the Value and General's office, if you really take a real stern valuation and adopt that, not much gets through valuers and not much gets through the state revenue, their valuing system, other than their rate assessments are actually, and unitisation needs a bit, I think they need to move away from an abacus and move into the digital world, but that's another story. But generally speaking, it needs to be, there's none of these controls. It's just, let's get behind the microphone and let's, okay, lad, we've just brought in this new initiative. No thought to it. And it's just reckless. And so, and what it does is distorts the market, because that same person that was looking at this property, this property, this property, they're all inflated. And they're disheartened and they go away and think, well, now I've got to look somewhere else. That's what happens. That's what's happened.
They're even further away.
Further away. You know, as I've said before, I mean, we've moved totally out of the residential market now. So Momentum Developments, which is a subsidiary, has done $1 billion of developments over the last 30 years. And I'm doing a very substantial warehouse and logistics and data centre in southeast of Melbourne. That's the only one at the moment. But we've normally had 3 or 4 projects on at once. Like just totally non-residential. That's a shame, because I was pretty good at it and enjoyed it. Not only building it, designing it, but selling them to people that I know. And a lot of them. So the affordability is that the only way it works now is that you've got land prices that are probably going to, they've taken a haircut on price. It's the building costs and the delivery. So the demand's certainly there, but there's this big separation and big difference between demand and how much they're prepared to pay, competing with construction costs. And so I just can't see that now. And what is, okay, the end consumer, because in business, the money's in the consumer's hands. That's in the client's hands. It's not anywhere else, it's in the client's hands. So if we're talking about product of 400, 500, 750, a million, the big question is, what does that buy you today, if it is finished, opposed to something else that's further out? And what does that look like compared to 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Sorry, 7 years ago. What does 2018 look like for $1 million or 750 compared to what you get now? Well, what the data says, it's 35% less space. So there's a certain amount of space that people need to live in, and it costs X. So the government, they're competing. What I'm saying as a developer, give the developer some concessions on land tax and GST, because we're still fighting a war out there with concrete and steel and joinery and services and labour costs. So they don't seem to listen to that. I don't understand that. My view is, if they've got a problem, let them build it. That's my view. See, what'll happen, like everything, it'll blow out. If they've got the problem, you build it and you provide the finance for these young people on the product that you actually provide, and I'm sure, and you don't, it'll be government land, and if it's government land, municipality land, state land, you develop it and just go and get Maltese or Lend-Lease and John Holland with infrastructure, get all those majors to come in there and you build it. And I'll say to people, look, we'll finance the deposits. Because What they're saying, it's a one-way street. And so the private sector right now, of a who's who in Melbourne and Sydney, is 80% pens down. That there is no action right now in that space. They're just sitting and waiting. My view is, well, I wasn't prepared to wait, and we're doing other things with our corporation and we're back in America now, looking at sites that I started in America and I'm back there, because of the opportunity and demand, and there are no mess around. They give concessions. But my view of the council, if the government want to fix it, you build it and finance it. Don't lock the land concessions up, jack land tax up, and rates, local rates have jumped 35% in the last 3 years. But don't ask people to go that we're going to create these initiatives and make planning easier, that you guys all pay for it, let the private sector pay for it, and in effect the end buyer pays for it. It's insanity. They've got no idea what they're doing. They're a pack of drunken Baptist ministers, all of them. Yeah, so the policies and the scheme and the architecture between those policies, you shouldn't roll them out without regulatory framework and running compliance around who qualifies. How do we give an incentive, this 5%, to this hard-working young male or female? How do we give them that consent, the 5% deposit under this housing scheme, and put a garrison and some security around there that they get benefit and don't get gouged on pricing of the property? How do we do that? Now hang on, what we should do is, before we find out how we put some solution, shield them from the price increasing, maybe what we do is we design that before we roll it out, maybe. Massive conflict. But the government's got that problem, and you know it's not an easy one. I get frustrated and angry with the government, not because they're bad people, both sides. I get frustrated because it hasn't been thought through. It's almost like there's a theory going through. I used to be really hard on stockbrokers when I was giving advice many years ago. And they'd come, so one day you'd get one stockbroking firm would refer to you on BHP as a buy. And across the other side of Collins Street, I'm talking 101, I mean, I don't want to mention names, BHP was a sell. I just found that fascinating. And I used to refer to them, I had a name for them, Dartboard Harrys. Westpac, yeah, BHP boys today, okay boys, BHP. So I get annoyed about the Dartboard Harrys in there without thought. Have you thought about it? It's a great idea, but maybe we think about it when we're sober. And think about how we roll it out, because what we're doing, we haven't created any good here. We've actually, this person that was reading it in the paper, oh my God, Dad, I'm going to have this, I've got a chance. Then they're decimated. Haven't saved them 5%, you've damaged it, you've increased that same property they're looking at 15. I get angry with that. That's just reckless.